guys, welcome back to my channel. I had a shockingly good reading month in January, for me at least. I read 12 books, which considering I'm in school full time is pretty good. 2 of them were for school and then 10 of them were just for fun that I read on my own. And I thought I would do a reading wrap-up video today. I don't necessarily think I will do one of these every single month. I think if I have a really light reading month, I might just wait and do 2 months combined. So I'm thinking I might do February and March together because just off the top of my head, I'm imagining that those 2 will be lighter reading months. But I do have enough books to do an entire video for the end of January. And I figured the setup that I would do for this is I would just briefly talk about the 2 academic books that I read first in case they interest anybody, and then I'm going to kind of do a reverse rating system. So I'm going to start with the books that I rated lowest on the scale, and I think for this month that's 2 stars. I don't think I had any 1-star books this month, and go all the way up to 5-star because I'm pretty sure I do have 2 5-star books that I really enjoyed this month. The first book that I read for school is The History of Mary Prince, a West Indian Slave by Mary Prince, and this one I just will mention briefly. If you're interested in the history of slavery, you should definitely read it because it is actually the first-hand account of a female slave's life that was written in English. The second book that I read for school this past month is called Mecca of Revolution, Algeria, Decolonization, and the Third World Order, and it is by Dr. Jeffrey Byrne. I've been wanting to read this book for a really long time, and it was amazing. It's very long, it's very dense, it is not an easy book to get through in my opinion, and I read it to write a paper on it, so perhaps it might have been a bit of a nicer time reading it if I wasn't reading it for that purpose. If you're interested in Algeria, if you're interested in decolonization, in the way that the Cold War affected countries in the Third World, anything like that, I think that you will really enjoy this book or learn something. If you're interested in Cuba-Algeria relations or Algeria-Yugoslavia relations, anything like that, I think you'll really I really liked it, so I don't know. I gave it 4 stars, and the only reason I didn't give it 5 is because it is a little dense and tricky to get through, and it's not so much a narrative, it's just straight up political history, which can get a little dense over 400 some odd pages, but it is incredibly well researched. Involved the use of the Algerian National Archives, and Dr. Byrne is, I believe, only the 2nd Western scholar to ever be granted access to those archives. And in the process of writing my paper, I did read several book reviews by other historians in the field, and the reviews were by and large very positive of it, so it's been really well received academically, and it also won a prize in 2017. So now moving into the books that I read purely for fun this past month, I have 3 books that I gave 2 stars to, and the first 2 books are the sort of end duology of the Selection series, so that's The Crown and the Heir by Kira Cass, or I believe it's The Heir and then The Crown, in terms of chronological order. They just weren't that special to me. They weren't that great. I found the character kind of annoying, to be perfectly honest. I thought America was annoying. Evelyn is even more annoying, but I'm glad I read them. I wanted to finish off the series. So there's that. And then this last book that I gave 2 stars to is 3 Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. And the reason I gave it 2 stars is quite honestly just because I'm confused by the book. I spoke about this in the library haul where I showed that I checked it out of the library, and I just don't know how I feel about the book. I'm just unsure. I have the second book, One Dark Throne, which I'm definitely planning on reading, and I'm hoping it will help me sort of solidify how I feel about the book. There was so much world building in the first book, and it had to take place 3 times because it's through 3 separate perspectives on 3 different parts of that little island they live on. And I just don't know. I only found 1 out of the 3 sisters to be likable and interesting, and I just wanted sort of an entire series focused on the one. So I don't know, I'm genuinely conflicted about how I feel about 3 Dark Crowns. I also have 3 books that I gave 3 stars to. So for me, 3 stars is a perfectly good book. There's nothing majorly wrong with it, but it's also not amazing and out of this world, excellent and incredible. So 3 stars for me, I know it might seem harsh, but 3 stars for me represents a book that I had no problems with and enjoyed reading, and I would be perfectly happy to read it again. It was just a good book overall. So the first one is Going Rogue by Robin Benway, and this is the 2nd book in a duology The first book is called Also Known As. It's about like a teenage girl who's a spy, and she and her parents work for like a non-governmental sort of spy agency. It's kind of like the CIA but international, and it doesn't report to any government, and it's like corrupt and it's kind of crazy. The first book I thought was definitely better than the second one, and the second one left off on this like weird cliffhanger where it seemed like it needed a third book, and then a third book just doesn't exist and there doesn't seem to be any plans to write a third book, so that was a teensy bit disappointing. So, I mean, like, there's pros and cons. I think the first book I just personally felt was more interesting, but also in the second book, the three main characters get developed and fleshed out a whole lot more. So it's a bit of a toss-up between the two books. Next is Tease by Amanda Maciel, and this is a standalone YA contemporary book about bullying, and it's told from the perspective of the bully. So a girl who was involved in bullying one of her classmates, and the classmate then goes on to commit suicide, and this girl has actually been charged criminally and has to appear in court. I didn't have any problems with this book, but equally I didn't find it to be out of this world amazing. I think it is an interesting perspective to take the perspective of the bully rather than the person being bullied. But I wish that I wish it had ended slightly differently. I wish that the author had shown more remorse on the main character's part. I think that the remorse was not quite enough and came really, really late. But I also think that that might be realistic. So yeah, it was a good book. Finally, I also gave 3 stars to Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which is the first book in the Grisha trilogy. And if you guys remember from my library haul, I was so excited about this book because it's sort of inspired by Russian history and like folklore. And I have to admit I was a little bit disappointed. I was hoping it was going to be a 4 or 5 star book, and it was good, but it just wasn't great. It wasn't amazing, and that's what I was really hoping and expecting it to be. I'm definitely going to read the second 2 books, and probably also the sort of folklore tale collection of stories that has been published, and I'm hoping the series picks up because I had such high hopes for it, and it sort of just didn't really... It disappointed me, but that doesn't mean it's a bad book. I was expecting more from it, I guess. So now we get into my 4 and 5 star books. I gave 2 books 4 stars this past month, and the first one is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, which, oh my god, it was such a good book. I was not expecting to like it because the idea of a whole book taking the place over one entire day just like isn't really my thing. I feel like it's not something I gravitate towards. It just feels a little bit like cliche and like not interesting. And I loved it. Both characters were so well fleshed out. It was funny, it was entertaining, it was heart-wrenching. Yeah, I just loved it. It was a great book. I also gave 4 stars to Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. I was similarly not expecting to love this one as much as I did. It was fantastic. There is a movie being made, I'm pretty sure. I think the movie is called Love, Simon. As much as I loved those 2 books, and I really did, there are 2 books that I loved even more this past month, and the first one is Tiny Pretty Things, which is just like everything I love in a book. It's ballet, it's boarding school, it's like insane drama and scandal, and is it realistic? Not really. Did I care? Not at all. I absolutely loved it. I have the sequel on order at my library. Like, they didn't have it in, so I literally submitted a request form for them to order it for me, and it's like coming in the mail, and I'm the first one on the list, on the holds list, and I just can't wait to read the sequel because the book is phenomenal. And the last book, and the second 5-star book this past month, was My Lady Jane, which did live up exactly to how much I thought that it was going to be amazing. So whereas Shadow and Bone kind of disappointed me and didn't quite hold up to the expectations I had for it, My Lady Jane was completely the opposite. I actually liked it even more than I thought I would. It was so funny. I feel like I haven't laughed like out loud a lot lately when I've been reading books, and My Lady Jane was hysterical. And I sort of was a teensy bit apprehensive about this sort of historical fiction and completely turning history on its head, because I'm a history major. Like, I love history. I think history is amazing, and the idea of sort of like messing with history doesn't really float my boat. But this was done in such a funny way. It was hilarious. I will definitely be reading the sequels. It's a big book. It's like 400, maybe nearly 500 pages. Like, it's long. But do not let that deter you. Do not let that scare you off. It is a fantastic book. It is so funny. And if you are worried that maybe you don't know a lot about English history or Lady Jane Grey or any of the history like that actually happened in real life, don't worry. There's like a little blurb at the beginning that basically tells you everything you need to know in order to follow along with the book. And then if you get to the end of the book and you decide you want to know like what actually happened in real life, because like she died, you can just go and like read about it yourself. So don't worry if you're not a huge history fan, and equally if you don't really like history, you'll still like this book. Like, you don't have to love the idea of studying real history in order to enjoy historical fiction spun on its head. So that is it. Those are all 12 books that I read this month. Like I said, it was a pretty good reading month for me, actually. I'm already, like, it's like 2 days into February, and I'm already feeling like February might not be that great for me, but at the same time, I do have an entire week off in February. It's my reading week, so maybe I will just power through a bunch of books, and it will actually be even better than January. We'll have to wait and find out. But either way, I hope you guys are having a great day and a very productive week, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!